Um, we've got a great day or great morning in store for you. We've got a really interesting and I think really informative sort of discussion that's going to happen today around Downer's role to be played in Australia and New Zealand's decarbonisation. So we're going to focus our attention in that opportunity that's going to be quite massive for Downer. Of course, you'll hear all about the individual businesses, you'll hear about the group, but we'll narrow that down into what we're doing in that area, and you'll see that we have a fabulous opportunity ahead of us. To start off, Michael and I'll just see how this goes. Michael Ferguson and I will take you through an overview. We're calling that Growth to Net Zero. We are one of the benefactors of this net zero position, and we'll talk to you about that in an overall sense. We're then going to touch on a few of the areas that I think we do very well, and we're going to hear from Julie Wills, who's Head of Sustainability, and we're also going to hear from Natasha Palthorpe, who's our Group Health Manager, on how Downer is making our communities better. We do a very, very good job in the ESG space. We're going to take you through that. Next, right now, it's very good to be good at risk management. Right, we think we do a very good job in this area. Peter Tompkins, our Chief Operating Officer, who looks after this particular area, is going to take you through sort of an in-depth view of how we do this. He'll take us through some examples, some actual real-time projects that we work on, and how we actually deal with risk in that right from pre-contract through. So I think that'll be pretty interesting for you. And then of course we get into the guts of really what we're talking about here today, and Downer's role in decarbonising the economy. And Ricky Bridge, who's our Group General Manager of Sustainability, will be talking to us about that. He's going to frame that in terms of what the world needs to do for net zero in 2050. We'll then bring that down to what Australia needs to do, and then within what Australia needs to do, Australia and New Zealand I should say, then where is Downer going to play in that market? What are we doing today, and what are we going to be doing in the future? Then we'll go through into each of the business units over the course of the morning, who will take you through what's happening in their business, and then they will focus in on what they're doing in this decarbonisation. And I think you'll be quite amazed with already the amount of work that's going on and the discussions that are being had with this very wide customer base that we've got. Then we'll finish at the end with a panel session and Q&A where you can ask any question you like, and we'll see how we go in answering it. So let's kick off on a very important slide, probably the most important slide of the day. I always start with this. If you want to understand Downer, you need to understand this slide. All right, so this is our purpose, our promise, and our pillars. It is very much our foundational document, right? It brings everything that we do together. It's a common link, a common bond. When we talk about how we answer questions, how we make decisions, we do come back to this. All of our material that we train our people in, we come back to this. This is what we're trying to achieve. So in our purpose, it's to create and sustain the modern environment by building trusted relationships with our customers. What's very important there is the trusted relationships. Right? That is what we bring to the table. You can't do our work without being trusted. It's just not possible. People will not bring you on often to do the most critical of tasks for them. They need to trust you, and you've got to be trustworthy. Our promise is to work closely with our customers to help them succeed using world-leading insights and solutions. Now the key here is we're about helping our customers succeed. That's our number one path. All right, so it's not about us and maybe our customers also get on. That's not the case. The way that we operate is that we help our customers succeed. The second course of that, of course, if they succeed, we'll be successful. It's very, very important. It gets to the ethos of the business. And of course, the pillars that back those up: safety, delivery, relationships, and thought leadership. Zero harm is embedded in Downer's culture and is fundamental to the company's future success. Nothing could be more truthful than that. We spend an inordinate amount of time and money and investment in this particular area. On the delivery side, we build trust by delivering on our promises with excellence while focusing on safety, value for money, and efficiency. On the relationship side, we collaborate to build and sustain enduring relationships based on trust and integrity. And on thought leadership, we remain at the forefront of our industry by employing the best people and having the courage to challenge the status quo. And that is what we do, and you'll see that today in the presentations that will come from our business unit heads. So let's have a look at Downer today. We are the leading provider of urban services in Australia and New Zealand. It is undoubted and it's unchallenged. We're an Australian sovereign, we have a large capital base, 40,000 plus people, most of those skilled. We're a sustainability leader, we're a market leader. We're critical to the sustainment and operation of a vast portfolio of government and private infrastructure. If Downer doesn't get up in the morning, right, if we don't go to work, it's a very bad day for Australia and New Zealand, I can assure you. Our business can't be turned off because the critical infrastructure that we look after can't be turned off. We're diversified across capabilities, markets and geographies, and that is a very clear strength. Our service delivery excellence drives long-standing and trusted relationships. The $35 billion of work in hand stretch 30 years. Right, and very regularly we are bringing onto the books jobs that are 10, 12, 15 years. And what you'll hear a lot about today is we are uniquely placed to support the Australian and New Zealand economies in energy transition and decarbonisation. So just a little look at that unique exposure to critical urban services. Looking around the wheel that makes up this company. We're about 50% transport. And in transport, that's road surfaces, 23%, projects, 17%, and rail and transit systems, 10% of that. So transport makes up 50% of our business. 35% is made up of facilities. And there's a very broad technical and skills base in there. Asset services, health and education, buildings out of New Zealand, defence 7%, and government 11%. And then the third part of our urban services is utilities. Telco, 4% of the business, water 5%, and power and gas 6%. A very balanced portfolio. We are a market leader in most categories in both Australia and New Zealand. So we lead the markets in the things that we do around that circle. Now those markets are high growth, and you'll see a little later on that we expect across the portfolio, or in fact BIS expects across the portfolio, when we take the growth levels around those markets and we weight them to our percentages, a CAGR over the next number of years of 7 to 8% is the amount of money that's going to be spent in extra money in those areas. One of the interesting things that's happening right now is that the significant barriers that already exist in these markets are increasing. And those barriers really exist around systems. You can't work for the critical infrastructure players within Australia and New Zealand unless you have very, very good systems. And I don't necessarily mean IT systems, I mean ways of going about your work. Quality systems, risk systems, safety systems, ESG systems. So the barriers to entry to step into these markets is becoming higher and higher and higher. And of course, new energy and decarbonisation opportunities are quite massive across this customer base, and you'll hear this today. So since COP26, we've seen quite a massive move in our customer base about how interested they are in net zero. Every manager, from the CEO down, has a target. And in many cases, they're scratching their heads as to how they solve them. Right, so this business, you will see across this wheel and the customer base that sits below it, they've got a massive task. And in many cases, we are the major service provider with a collection of skills, technical capabilities, etc., across that decarbonisation path that can get them where they need to be. And again, you'll hear a lot more about that in a few moments. Now, we have scale and capacity in both Australia and New Zealand. What we've put on the picture here is to show you the level and the percentages of the Australia and New Zealand position. And what you take from this is that New Zealand is, in the most part, a microcosm of, or the nature of the business is a micro of Australia. Right? We do most of the things in New Zealand that we do in Australia, not all, but most. If you've been to New Zealand, Downer is very much a household name. The brand in New Zealand is very, very strong. And we've got great growth prospects there, as well as decarbonisation opportunities. The business in New Zealand continues to improve each year, and you'll hear from Steve Colleen today more about that. It's undoubted that the New Zealand business gives the broader Downer Group, a lot of strength. It is very much a bedrock of the Downer business. Now, I just touched before on what we expect in customer spend over the next number of years, and we expect it to be well above GDP. I get this question a lot from investors around, is this business a GDP business? And I say, well, maybe when all of the infrastructure is built, we're at net zero, you don't have deficits in infrastructure, either in the capital build or in the maintenance, this business could be seen as a GDP business. But it's certainly not that, and it won't be for decades. In this graph here, what it shows is, and this is a BIS Oxford Economics 2022, the expectations of facilities growth, 6.5% CAGR. These are our customer spends. Utilities, 5.3% CAGR, and transport, 9% CAGR. Now, when we work that down to our weighted average, right, that's 7 to 8%. If you think transport's 50% of the business. Revenue is not an issue going forward for this business. Yes, you've got to be good to get it. You've got to be right at your mark. But we are the market leaders. We seem to be very good in these areas. As I say, revenue will not be the issue. Our customers continue to spend. There are unprecedented levels of government investment in construction and sustainment. You hear it almost every day. You certainly hear it during the election cycle. But it's not just that. It's also in the budgets. Every time we turn around, there's more to be spent in defence. We're now the 4th largest defence contractor in the country, and getting bigger in that area. Development is now becoming a large part of our position with defence. Our scale, management systems, technical capabilities put us in a very strong position. And as I said before, we've got a great cross-sector of customer base for new energy and decarbonisation solutions. I'll just hand over to Michael now, and he'll take you through a couple of slides on cash and a few other things, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about outlook for 22.